Episode number 120. Welcome to All About Breastfeeding, the place where the girls hang out. I am your host, Lori Eisenstadt, IBCLC, which stands for International Board Certified Lactation Consultant. This is the week that, in the United States, we celebrate Thanksgiving. I typically am producing and recording 3 shows a week. This particular week, I'm recording 2 shows, but giving myself a break for 1 day and playing for you one of my most popular shows instead. Before we get to the show, just a reminder. I have plenty to offer breastfeeding moms in the way of help before and after your baby's born. Just head on over to allaboutbreastfeeding.biz. Look around my website and check out all the free resource and information I have for you. If you are in pain or suffering or anxious about breastfeeding, consider setting up a Skype consult with me. You will find information on allaboutbreastfeeding.biz/Skype on how to go about scheduling our consult. I wish everyone who celebrates Thanksgiving a very happy and healthy holiday filled with good food, good friends, and the beginning of a joyful holiday season. Enjoy today's show. Let's get started. This is a repeat of one of my most popular shows, episode number 23, and it is titled My Daily Mantra. If breastfeeding hurts, something is not quite right. This is a topic I feel very strongly about. I talk about this every single day in my practice. This information continues to be passed down from generation to generation, from mother to mother, and still is even in some books. Do not let anyone convince you that breastfeeding is supposed to hurt. The reason I have a problem with this is because if this is what your belief system is, it will keep you from getting the help you need. You will stay home, suffering for way too much time. By the time you reach out for help, you have been put through the ringer, and at this point, it is common for you to feel at your wit's end. If something does not change practically overnight, you are just not sure if you can go on any longer. As an IBCLC, I want to prevent you from reaching this point of frustration or pain or anxiety. Please enjoy this show and share it with all your pregnant friends so they too may have good information about breastfeeding.
Balloons, bazookas, boobies, bosoms, boulders, cans, hooters, knockers, melons, honkers, jugs, rack, tatas, tits, torpedoes, guns, bust, doorknobs, coconuts, and our favorite one, the girls. Welcome to the All About Breastfeeding show, where your host, Lori, highlights mothers just like yourself and goes beyond the surface questions and digs deep so they share not only their joys and happiness in their daily breastfeeding life, but also their pain and struggles and how they worked through them.
Episode number 23, Just Lori, My Daily Mantra. In a previous show, episode number 21, I talked about the fact that breastfeeding should not be painful. I talk about this a lot in my daily work. It is basically my working mantra. What I say is, if breastfeeding is hurting on day 1, something is not right. If breastfeeding is hurting on day 2, something is really not right. And if breastfeeding is hurting on day 3, something is definitely not right, and I urge you to seek professional help right away. This is my daily mantra to mothers. I say it many times a week. I have it on my website. What I really would like to do is have it on every billboard, along every highway, in every city and every town. I'd like to put it on the back windshield. I would also like for this to be handed out to every mother in every childbirth education and breastfeeding class. When you enter the halls of the maternity unit or your birthing center, or in the literature that your OBs and midwives give you, I want it to be in big, bold letters. Breastfeeding is not supposed to hurt. My family hears me say this ad nauseum. I get that they are bored of hearing me say it. But the big problem is that 30 years later, I continue to meet with moms on a regular basis, and it continues to astound me how frequently mothers are given the wrong information. And at this point, I'd like to share a story. But first, I'm going to sound like one of those law enforcement shows. I have changed the names of the people involved to protect the innocent. And I'm going to do just that. I want to share a story of a mother I recently worked with. But don't think this is you, though, because I've changed the names of the mom of the baby, the exact age of the baby, and I've also changed some of the circumstances, but not enough to have an impact on the story, but just enough to protect the innocent. I recently worked with Jasmine, who came to my office about 5 weeks ago with her almost 2-month-old baby daughter, Clara. Jasmine was frantic as she was about to return to work, and in her own words, breastfeeding is still not comfortable, and I have to get this figured out before I go back to work because it's just way too stressful, Lori. Jasmine said that she did not think she could function well at work when her nipples were on fire all the time. Plus, she felt like it was going to be a lot of work and very distracting to make sure she had time to complete her whole routine before returning back to her desk. When Jasmine called on the phone to make the appointment, I heard that common buzzword. She said that she has kept trying to make breastfeeding work, and she gave it quote-unquote 6 weeks, and it's still not better. I asked Jasmine what exactly she gave 6 weeks and what exactly was not better. Now, the truth is, I had a pretty good idea I knew what she was going to say. However, I'm wrong sometimes. I wanted to hear what she had to say because there are times when I'm surprised, and I did not want any of my assumptions to get in the way of really being able to hear what Jasmine had to say. So Jasmine told me that breastfeeding hurt from the very beginning, from the very first few latches in the hospital. And by the time she left, her nipples were cracked and bleeding. And she had read and heard conflicting information about whether or not this was normal, but she relied on the hospital staff to really help her and give her an idea of what was normal and not. Now, she said the lactation consultant told her it was normal for her to be in some degree of pain for a few weeks, and then her nurse told her that her cracked and bleeding nipples were normal. Her nurse said, "Well, what do you think happens when you breastfeed? They are sucking on your nipples and you are going to crack and bleed, but you will toughen up and they will heal." The nurse told her this will take about 6 weeks. So what does Jasmine do? She spends a better part of 6 weeks at home, stressed out to the max, dealing with pain, using every lotion and cream and pad and anything else she could find under the sun to help her get through this tough time, waiting for her nipples to heal. She continued taking pain medication long after she needed it to recover from the birth. And when the 6-week mark comes up, she then made that call. Now, there's several things about Jasmine's story that really bother me. When you speak with many IBCLCs, they will tell you that this scenario is something they hear and work with on an almost daily basis, and of course, it should not be. To have this degree of nipple damage in the first 2 days is a sure sign that something is not right, and meanwhile, Jasmine and other moms are told this is normal, toughen it out, wait for it to get better. And while we definitely care about her nipple pain, we also care about other things. And I know my regular listeners will know this answer. Why do we care about her nipple pain, her cracked and bleeding nipples? We care because the nipple pain frequently means a poor latch. A poor latch means less milk is being transferred, which then means the baby is not getting a full feeding. And what does this mean? Again, I know my regular listeners will know this answer. If your baby is not transferring enough milk, getting a full feeding, this usually means poor weight gain for your baby. And this usually means less milk volume produced by the mom. And ongoing pain puts moms at risk for, I know, come on, you know this, breast infections and discontinuing breastfeeding sooner than she had planned. And so what does this make me? Yes, it makes me very, very unhappy that this mother did not get to meet her personal breastfeeding wishes and goals. So yes, absolutely, this very common scenario totally pisses me off. Jasmine came to this consult with 2 Ziploc bags filled with creams and lotions and pads, and she had a story about each item. She used a certain cream during the day, a certain cream when her nipples felt a certain way afterwards, and then she used another one that she felt worked better at night. She had several kinds of gel pads. She said she thinks she had an allergic reaction to one of them, so she brought it in to show me to see if I have ever heard of this before. Now, Jasmine came to this consult hoping there would be a magical fix. Well, she didn't exactly say it in those words, but I have had enough mothers say this, and I figured it was a pretty good assumption, as she did say she was returning to work in a few weeks and needed to get this figured out. I understood what she meant when she said she did not look forward to returning to work with her nipples on fire all the time. I mean, who would? But I wasn't sure exactly what she meant when she said that she did not think she had the time to complete her whole routine before returning to work. I assumed that at least part of her routine was preparing to pump, the actual art of pumping, cleaning her parts, and getting back to her desk. I had some words of wisdom to help her with this, but I first asked her what the situation was like where she worked as far as pumping. We discussed where she worked, what kind of work she did, and what the setup was for pumping. Jasmine actually had a great gig going on. She had privacy for pumping, a place to put her own little refrigerator where no one else was going to get at it, and no one was going to be timing her time spent away from her desk. All the pressure she was under, she was putting on herself. Okay, well, this at least makes it easier for me to counsel her. The part that I was really missing was her whole routine. For Jasmine, it was all about the nipples, all about the nipples. She had been paying a lot of attention to her poor nipples on fire, and in her words, she's babying them. After a feeding or a pumping, she's wiping down her nipples with warm water. She's then drying them. Once they're air dried, she's deciding which cream or which gel pad or which nursing pad should she put on washable, reusable, throwaways. She's having to make all these decisions after every single feeding. And all of these answers depend on how her nipples feel. Oh, and sometimes she has hand expressed some of her milk and rubs this onto her nipple tissue. Right now at home, she air dries for 10 minutes, then puts the lotions or pads, and then puts her bra flaps back up, and all this can easily take her another 5 minutes. Then she's washing her hands before and after she's pumping. And then she is finally done with her whole routine. Now I have a pretty good idea of what she was talking about. I estimate that about every 3 hours, Jasmine needs to put in about 30 minutes time into breast pumping, storing, nipple care before she gets back to work. No wonder she's worried. I mean, it's a good thing no one else is timing her, but this is a lot of extra time and does get into your workday. And forget about the fact that, guess what? All of this is painful for her. Although I suspect that pumping at work might give her nipples a bit of a break if it is her baby that is causing the damage. So is it any wonder that some moms lose the breastfeeding when they return to work? In my interview, which was episode number 20 with Jessica Shortall, who wrote Work, Pump, Repeat, a guide for working moms who are pumping, she talked about the many reasons she is advocating and pushing for paid leave for mothers, and the time it takes to pump at work is just one of them. I said to her, it's like taking on a part-time job, moms who have to pump at work. And Jessica said, yes. And by the way, she said, it's not just another part-time job that you go elsewhere to do. It's a part-time job that you do during the working hours of your already full-time job. I had to take a step back and think about that, but you know what? She's right. Okay, so I gathered all the information I needed about her situation, including a full intake on her and the baby, which always includes checking her baby's mouth, tongue activity, palate, as well as her breast and nipple anatomy, a full questionnaire about her birth and her health as it relates to breastfeeding. Both nipples had a significant amount of trauma with some tissue erosion brought on by her baby rubbing her tongue on the underside of her nipples. Both sides had damage in approximately the same place. I observed how she was holding her baby, how she latched her baby on, and felt like there was only a slight adjustment that I could offer. Otherwise, she was doing pretty good with position and latch. I also observed a very significant and very short frenulum under the baby's tongue. We all have a frenulum which loosely attaches the tongue to the base of the mouth. Some babies are born with a piece of skin that is unusually short and tight and maybe thick, and this restricts the tongue's movement. For some, it does not interfere with normal breastfeeding at all, but for other babies, it prevents the baby from breastfeeding properly and can cause a whole host of problems for mom and baby. And basically what this is doing is tethering or holding the tongue very close to the floor of the mouth. And when we see this, what happens is it does not allow the baby's tongue the full range of motion that is needed in order to achieve a good deep latch and stay directly off her nipple and basically milk her properly in a way that's not going to cause her pain. Each time Clara came to her breast, she was just pinching the nipple, literally hundreds of times a feeding session, and just rubbing the delicate nipple tissue raw, which was removing part of the tissue and causing the skin to crack. And if this is not fixed, it usually begins to bleed, which that's what causes the mother an extreme amount of pain. Several weeks after her C-section, Jasmine was still taking painkillers for her nipple pain. It was probably helping her to skate along a bit. But you know what? Man, this has got to be incredibly painful. So the focus of the rest of the consult was on making latch adjustments, lots of education on how the lingual frenulum, which is underneath the tongue, interferes with normal breastfeeding. I gave her a referral to a provider who will evaluate the frenulum, diagnose if her baby is tongue-tied or not, and a care plan for the next 4 days that had a goal of healing her nipples and increasing her supply. Jasmine did follow through on my suggestions, and while she surely hoped it would fix her problem, she also had little faith that it would. But you know what? She was obviously someone who persevered through all this pain. She was not going to stop now. Jasmine worked hard at this for the next 2 weeks, and close to the end of the 3rd week, when she was very close to returning to work, she felt like breastfeeding was painless and easy, and she had a good supply and a happy baby. She was actually shocked that she was able to leave her house without worrying if she would have a panic attack when it came time to feed her baby. Honestly, Jasmine's story is just one of many, many that I see every single month. I am grateful for that stubbornness in her personality, her ability to persevere during her most darkest and painful of days. I am grateful that she had the support of her spouse to keep going. I did not meet her husband. However, Jasmine did say that there were a few times when he did put his foot down and literally demand that she stop, but she refused to do so. I imagine this led to a few arguments in the household that were not very pretty. Here's the deal, though. Here's my whole point. Having a baby and recovering from birth and being postpartum is hard enough for most of us. Jasmine should have been spending the last 6 weeks home with her baby, enjoying feeding her baby, recovering from the birth, and enjoying her time much more than she did. There's no reason for Jasmine to suffer, and for so long, had she been given the right information. It's totally out of my control what every different healthcare provider lactation consultant, nurse, staff person, parent, sister, friend, what they know and what they say about breastfeeding to the mother. However, it is in my control to set the record straight when I teach breastfeeding classes, and I continue to drive this same point home on this podcast. Perhaps one day I will be rich enough and famous enough to pay for that highway billboard myself, or be rich and famous enough to hang out with other rich and famous people who care about breastfeeding, who I can convince to take out billboards and advertising on public transportation, and with it all saying, breastfeeding is not supposed to hurt. If it does, get help right away. Alyssa Milano and Gwen Stefani, where are you now when I need you? Okay, so 2 podcasts in a row about breastfeeding and pain. I think I need a break from this now. What should my next podcast be about? If you have thoughts or ideas, just go to allaboutbreastfeeding.biz/contact and share your ideas with me. Until the next time, I leave you with this quote that makes me think of Jasmine and what she must have done every day. Take a deep breath, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and start all over again. And that's it for our show today. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I hope you're enjoying the shows. iTunes makes it so easy for you to get all the previous and upcoming shows. Just go to iTunes and search for All About Breastfeeding and subscribe to the show. As promised, I am now offering several ways that we can connect with each other. I talk to mothers all the time after they have given birth. Many have said they would have liked the opportunity to talk with me before their baby was born so they could go over certain things that may have been troubling them about breastfeeding. You have many questions about your own health, medication you're taking, and how it might impact breastfeeding, or perhaps about your breast and nipple anatomy. Perhaps you have fears or anxieties about breastfeeding, and you feel it will be helpful to talk it out before your baby's born. Some mothers just have a bunch of questions that could not be answered in your regular breastfeeding class because of time or privacy. These are just some of the many reasons you will want to have a Skype consult with me. Talking things through can help you clear the way emotionally for an excellent start with breastfeeding. All you need to do is go to allaboutbreastfeeding.biz/Skype to schedule your online prenatal consult. Next up to talk about, I finally have all the pieces in place and our online breastfeeding mothers group is ready to go. I know how hard it can be in the last trimester, just waiting to give birth, looking forward to holding your baby in your arms for the first time, and the excitement building as you look forward to breastfeeding your baby. How great would it be for you to hang out with other pregnant moms and new mothers? Pregnant moms get to find out what new motherhood is like and what newborn breastfeeding is like from brand new moms. And the brand new moms get to talk about all your breastfeeding stuff and ask all your questions about normal newborn breastfeeding. What I have is a virtual online breastfeeding mothers group where you sign on once a week to meet and chat with other mothers who are going through similar experiences as you are. You become friends and support each other. I will be facilitating the group, so you know there's always an experienced lactation consultant ready to jump in and answer your questions and make sure the information is accurate. If you would like to be part of 10 mothers who will meet once a week virtually for 8 weeks to talk about all about your breastfeeding stuff, just check out allaboutbreastfeeding.biz/support. You will find out more detailed information on the group's start dates and prices and how it all works. I really am excited and I look forward to meeting with you on Google Hangout and getting to know each other.